body art project. You probably already know that. I designed like a utility bag thing. I don't know. What sparked the idea for me was that I wanted to take my interest in computer-aided design off the computer and into the really scary real world by creating a utility bag inspired by a project Amy Krempitz did a couple of years ago. Just to elaborate on that, I wanted to create like an over-the-shoulder utility bag that would carry like a bunch of different tools and other stuff when I wanted to like go out and about. I wanted to increase my proficiency in design, creative thinking, and rapid prototyping. I also later on decided that I wanted to learn how to sew. I mean, that's probably something I should have done from the start, but oh well. My first step was going out and surveying people for what they felt was important to have in the bag, which was where I like made a first iteration, which was basically like a desk organizer where I put a bunch of compartments for each of the items. But it was like a little boxy, and the way it was laid out didn't feel quite right. So then for my second iteration, I tried solving the problems by making it less boxy, but that also didn't really solve the problems because it looked really stupid. So I realized at this point that I kind of either needed to learn how to sew and like not use the computer, or I could stare at a computer screen for 2 more weeks, which would sound really fun. I also got sick. I know that's a common theme, but I got sick for 2 weeks, so oh well. I think Rich gave me a push to go for the sewing, so I decided to go out of my comfort zone and rapid prototyped like a bunch of iterations for a bag, and I was able to complete it. I was meant to bring it here, but I forgot it, so you can see the next photo. I was able to complete like a final design with a bunch of some of the extra things, and I've gone to the fabric store and I'm going to be like making the final one over today and tomorrow, which I'm happy about. This project has reinforced and expanded my curiosity for learning, and I plan on continuing sewing in the future. I'm really proud that I was able to complete a bag, even though I only had like 2/3 of the time. And I want you to, if you're going to take anything away, I want you to feel the magic of like exploring a new skill and like diving headfirst into it and just making a ton of stuff. It's really fun. Because to me, that's like what Brightworks is about. And I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank Rich and Bix, who taught me how to sew. I want to thank Liam and Corey and Aiden for all being like really good people to talk to and give me ideas for stuff. I don't know, I don't know, does anyone have any questions? Don't ask me about the slide, by the way. This was made like way too long ago and I forgot to replace it. I'm sure I'm going to put it in the slideshow.
So obviously your box iterations use 3D design. What about your fabric iterations? Did you do any design work in that? Or?
So for those, I mostly based it off of like my boxy iterations that I converted into a net on a fabric, and then each time I would like point out what I didn't like about the iteration, because I made like 5 bags at this point. So I'd point out what I didn't like about the last iteration of it and change it a little bit. And so I have like a bunch of ones that are very similar but just different sizes. So I didn't really do it on the computer. It was mostly like in my head and a few bits on paper. B.
How big is that?
Oh, it's not too big. I think I think it's 22 centimeters this way, and then 15 centimeters this way, and then or no, not 15 this way. Or maybe 15 this way. Yeah, 15 this way, and then like 15 tall, something like that. Mandisa?
Mine is more of a prominent question. I just wanted to get on record that I've actually seen Bag's prototype, and he has promised to make me a bag, so I wanted to have that on record.
Rich?
First, as the resident science teacher, I appreciate you sharing the length in centimeters. And secondly, you spoke about the magic of learning a new skill. Do you have any advice for people that are facing an obstacle when they're learning a new skill?
So this is something I've heard from a few people, but when I got to this point in my iterations, when I had like a boxy design that I didn't really like and I wasn't really sure what to do next, what I did is I kind of made a bunch of different sketches in like like small little mini iterations of different ways I could go with the project until I realized, okay, sewing is probably gonna be the best way to go for this. Because like I actually made some sketches of what like a more like metal iteration or a boxy one would look like. So just kind of expanding laterally to figure out what your next step might be is I think a pretty good approach.
Thank you.
June.
Sorry. How did you feel about doing projects not heavily relying on computers?
It was actually really fun. I really loved sewing. It was really fun. Elijah.
When you interviewed people about what they would want to put in the bag, what were some of the answers you got, and what did you end up with?
Oh yeah, so the top responses were water and snacks. But let's see. Yeah, water and snacks were the top ones, but also people said like hairbrush and I don't know, a couple other things. I don't remember all of them. My current iteration is more like general because I realized that like you kind of want to be able to put anything in all the pockets, and you just kind of want to have the options of putting things in there. Rich again.
Thank you. I'm assuming a number of us have this question about the imagery on your current slide.
Oh yeah. So, do you want to know who they are, or what are you asking?
Just any explanation of your choice.
Yes. So during this project, I got sick for 2 weeks, so I didn't have as much time as I wanted to spend on research. But I did do like a small bit of research where I researched about the collapse of the Qing dynasty, and like genuinely, it's really interesting. And so that the guy on this guy over there. Is the general that sided with the revolutionaries in exchange for power to help overthrow the emperor. And this is Chiang Kai-shek, who was the leader of the Kuomintang during the Civil War and a bunch of other stuff. So I put it on here as kind of a joke, but I don't know. Okay, great. I want to welcome Dix to the stage now.
Watching Beck learn to sew was like watching my child take his first steps. It was amazing. Hi. So my project started out, as all good projects do, me scrolling on Pinterest. I came across this hoodie. I thought it was really cool. I saved it to the Fits board. Didn't really think about it again. Later, my lovely mother showed me this for inspiration, I think. And I did have to break it to her. It was AI. But, you know, it was an interesting concept. Kind of impossible to actually do, but interesting concept. During decorations, I was unhappy with pretty much every idea I had and the lack of ideas. I had interesting research topics or interesting project ideas, but none of them came together. And I really wanted to do something around anatomy, with my recent interest in that sparking for no particular reason. I remembered the old idea and was like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah. And bada bing, bada boom, here we are. I jumped into it with so much research. Reading like anatomical sites and textbooks is absolute torture. As a beginner who has no idea what I'm looking at, it was really confusing. But I got some fun sources too that I used for completely good research and only research. I went to Amazon to order some base hoodies. They would not arrive for a week though. And I was working on drawing the bones and muscles, working out my notes, getting it all together. So more research. But I was really frustrated with not being able to start patterning in the hoodie's absence. I didn't know the dimensions of them. And it was just a really frustrating circle those weeks. So thank you, June, for letting me cry on you. When they did arrive, I was so very excited. So very excited that I cut them so that within the hour they arrived into my grubby little paws. And I cut them wrong. Yeah. So measure twice, cut once. Don't do what I did. I fixed it eventually, but that did like kind of hurt my feelings, to be honest. When I finally got to patterning, I realized I had only been focused on how fun it would be and not really how hard it would be. which it was. I had to balance figuring out anatomy, scaling it to the sweatshirt, and how to translate that into something that could be made out of fabric. It was a fun Venn diagram of pain. So these are just an overview of the bits. My arm bones. These were the first things I actually sewed down, and I'm genuinely so happy about them, though feeding it through the machine was kind of difficult. The arm muscles aren't done because you have 16 muscles in your forearm alone. That is way too many. That's so neat, so cool. The spine, it was kind of hard to get all the divots out. I really liked it though. I feel like the spine was kind of a moment when I saw all the bones come together, and it was kind of a finishing piece. I have to say, it's kind of my favorite bone. The trunk muscles or the torso, I had to think to get them around the side of the body, like the peel of a person laid flat. I was just as grossed out as you are. Yeah. And then, oh my god, the ribs. I was trying originally to get them to go around the side the same way I did with the muscles. That didn't work out though because they're so finicky, and even when I abandoned that plan, getting all the bits to line up, not break apart, or go in the wrong direction was incredibly stressful. But I'm really proud of how they turned out. So looking back, I'm really proud of this project, but I do wish I had thought it through a little more. I could have used more in-person experts, of which I had zero. That idea. But I am genuinely so proud of what I accomplished. I've never really done a project this big, and I've never had the motivation to do a project this big. And I'm really proud of it. At Expo, I'm gonna have the sweatshirt out along with all my patterns and research notes. Please come, I spent so very long on it. I would love to see you. And I do have plans for the future with this. I wanna keep working on it beyond Expo. I know I'm going to have to spend more time on the arm muscles than I have if I want to get them up to the standard I want them to be. And I'm thinking about adding patches to the hood of a skull and brain just for funsies. My gratitudes, thank you to my pookies, Iona, Berkeley, and Juniper for letting me straight up cry on you. Shirvan, the I'm not mad, I'm disappointed looks when I got distracted were a great help, to be honest. Mom, I'm really sorry I ruined the dining room table for like a week and a half. But I appreciate all your help too, and all my podcasts which kept me sane through this. And thank you for listening. Any questions? With how much time I spent on this is the only hoodie I'm ever wearing. Rich.
What advice do you have for folks that are getting to start working on, say, a sculpture or a piece of work where you only have like one item? Because you spoke about being super excited and rushing in. Do you have any thought, like things you learned that you're gonna use, like your future self, or advice for us when we're excited to work on?
Yeah, so I would say being forced, with not being able to pattern originally, being forced to take so much time and make so many drawings was helpful, though it didn't seem like it at the time, and really trying to thoroughly understand what I was working with before I went in. But I also think looking at how other people have done similar things and seeing just other methods and other options you have before you go in is definitely a helpful point of reference, aside from just looking at what you have to make.
Cool, thank you.
Linnea.
You told us your favorite bone was the spine. What was your favorite muscle?
None of them. No, I take that back. I quite like the trapezius. I think he's a fun shape. And he was simple enough. I approve of the trapezius. Big stamp of approval. B.
What advice would you give to people who are like beginning design information?
Don't do what I did. I already kind of know how to sew. Don't start with this. Look up some beginner patterns, and I would say watch some video tutorials. If you can get in-person advice, I think that's kind of one of the best ways to learn. But just take it slow, Don't sew over your fingers. I was never at risk for that, I promise you, Arson. But yeah, just trying to learn all the basics and then see what you can make. Okay, last one, Arson.
Did you ever do any hand stitching? And what kind of stitch did you end up doing?
I have done a little bit. I'm doing it so I can make the pocket still functional, which is definitely a worthwhile use of my time. I just use like a back stitch because I can do it pretty fast. Yeah. All right. Can I take one more? All right. James, what's up?
I just wanted to commend you on your altruism. As I spent time in the class, I saw you helping so many of your bandmates, and I know that you guys were all crushed for time. And I saw you guys helping each other a lot, and for whatever reason, I just saw you really stepping up to help your other bandmates, whether that's teaching them to sew, supporting them, asking if they needed a raise or any of that. So,
Thank you. It was definitely never used to procrastinate. So next, also an anatomical project, we got Vihan.
Hello everyone, how are we doing today? I can't really hear the energy. Okay, that's better. So I'm here to share with you my amazing project, this body arc. I'm drawing the brain. I've recently been participating a lot more in the BIPOC community at Brightworks. I was invited to go to the Northwestern's Conference for Social Justice Teaching, which really got me thinking how the brain really links to your identity and who you are. I also was inspired by some artists, particularly Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, his paintings, he creates a lot of artistic anatomical diagrams. I also was inspired by Salvador Dali, as his surrealistic art really inspires a lot of depictions of the unconscious, and he also inspired me a lot too. I also was not that good at drawing before this. We had this tradition in Opal Band where we would create drawings each day from different prompts. This was one of them on one of my days, and I was kind of disappointed, so I did really want to improve my drawing skills, as well as get better at scientific drawing, which I'll explain why later. I was also really curious how a scientific drawing can be both anatomical, functional, and artistic. Anatomical because it could focus on the physical structure, which is really intricate, showing its interconnected parts. Functional, so that I can highlight the different areas that serve different functions. And artistic, so it can be artistic. My vision for this project was I really wanted to create a poster with two perspectives on scientific drawings. I also wanted to create a research document explaining each part of the brain so I can better educate others. My experts for this project were my mom, because she's a very seasoned doctor, my teacher Shervan, as he's very good at drawing, and he could also give me a lot of tips, and of course Gaber. Gaber sounds really unexpected since it's a project that involves scientific drawing and the brain, but he actually happened to approve me, and he volunteered to explore neurons with me through Python. This was a golden opportunity because I wanted to learn some coding as well. To understand the brain's complexity, you must first take into account its intricate design, its intricate structure, and a very unique curves. It also has many functional areas, such as areas that handle executive functions and motor functions. In order to capture this complexity, you must first make sure you accurately label it so others can understand. You also must make sure you study the brain a lot so you can make sure you have a firm understanding, and you should also use the correct utensils depicting the thickness. You also have to make sure it's scientifically accurate. I started this project by researching all the parts of the brain. I also looked at many diagrams. By now I've looked at hundreds. I eventually decided on doing a lateral view, inferior view, and a lateral view. The superior view is the brain from the top, the inferior view is the brain from the bottom, and the lateral view is the brain from the side. After doing this, I started drawing, and these are my very first drawings, and I got some feedback from my bandmates and Shirvan. For the next iteration, I decided to jump to making a poster where I had to draw the perspectives. This was very hard because I had to scale it up a lot, and I had to erase the diagrams multiple times since they weren't scientifically accurate. After this, I got some feedback from Shirvan and my bandmates and progressed. For my final iteration, I'm not going to show it to you, but you can come to an expo to learn more. For this iteration, I decided to better my font for the titles as they were not legible. So I learned some cursive from Shirvan, thank you so much. And I also made sure to use the correct utensils since I was using the same thickness marker too much. I also made sure to color code this iteration so it's easier to understand where the parts are. Why did we make this project? Well, I really wanted to understand the brain. I've always been fascinated by it and how it achieves so many functions and really defines who you are and how you communicate with others. I also really wanted to learn basic drawing techniques and get better at scientific diagrams as I really wanted to jump into physics this space arc. This really matched my attentions at the beginning of the project. At the beginning of the arc, I really wanted to learn about the brain and get better at scientific drawing. I also wanted to get better at drawing in general. Now I went from inexperienced to intermediate with drawing. I've also learned all the parts of the brain and what functions they achieve. Remember how I was talking about Gaver earlier? Well, with Gaver, we created some code that I'll explain the code on the next slide. This code creates the eye, which is the retina. It creates a 4x4 grid filled with rods that represent the image, it also creates the brain, which is a single neuron. And it connects the eye to the brain with dendrites, which is a connection with a weight. And we also added a learn function, which is to adjust the weights and trying to make the brain's value as close as possible to the target. This is my code, and you can learn more in my expo booth. In the future, like I said, I want to learn more physics, and I really want to learn more about cell theory with my newfound scientific drawing skills. I have a lot of takeaways from these projects, but this is the 3 main takeaways I've had. First is complexity. The brain is a marvel of complexity, both structurally and functionally. It took me many tries to really understand this complexity, and I hope you all can understand too. Creativity. Art and science really complement each other when exploring the brain. And I really want you guys to really understand that when you see my drawings and scientific diagrams. It also inspires a lot of artwork and offers us a glimpse into human nature. From this project, a big skill I learned was how to scale. If you copy an image down on a paper slightly larger, you should make sure to scale the areas the section curves. It took me a lot of tries to understand this. The next thing I learned was finding patterns. Since the internet is not always the same, all the diagrams you find, you have to look at the drawings a lot to find commonalities within and for me to interpret them. Why should we care about the brain? Well, from what I've learned was that whenever people are talking about the body, in my experience, they really do not refer to the brain that much, but probably because it's really complex. I also believe that the brain really shapes our day-to-day lives, and we should care a lot about it. As well as having so many functions, it also inspires so much creativity in art pieces, which I hope you guys will understand. Thank you so much for sitting through my presentation. I would like to thank you all. I'd also love to thank Shirvan for giving me so much feedback. I'd like to thank my bandmates for their opinions as well. And I'd like to thank all my experts, Gaver and my mom. Thank you so much, everyone. Any questions? Ashleen.
Can you talk a little bit more about like the inspiration piece of it? Just kind of help connect the dots a little bit more between going to the conference, or was it like the actual conference? What part of it?
Yeah, sure. So throughout this conference, we talked a lot about identity and which really got me thinking a lot about how people think about themselves, how the world perceives them, which really got me thinking how the brain really influences this. it's good. Rich.
In your research, was there a part of the brain that you were drawn to or fascinated by more than others?
I really like the cerebellum. It has a really unique and intricate pattern, and it really looks nice.
Thank you.
Any more questions? What's your name?
Jan.
Oh, Miss
So I
Jan.
was wondering, there's been so much discussion about artificial intelligence, and I was interested to see what you were doing with coding and also thinking about the brain as an entity. And I was wondering if that raised any, or if you have any thoughts about artificial intelligence after coming through this project.
Yeah, I really like for artificial intelligence. It's fine if you repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
Sure. I was just wondering, after you delved into the brain, and there's been so much talk about creating, like kind of recreating the brain and sort of like artificial intelligence, what are your thoughts about that?
I'd say that artificial intelligence is great. I really use artificial intelligence quite a bit. I in fact used it to really understand the brain, because at first I asked it a bit to divide this brain into sections, and as I found those sections, I searched them up a lot. I do believe that the neurons can be recreated with a lot of work. And my thoughts on AI is, I'm really excited to see how it comes together and how they can really recreate the brain. Kaya.
Sorry. What was the most difficult part of this project?
I'd say it was stepping out my comfort zone, as I'm a really, like Beck, I'm a really computer science guy, so it was really hard to jump into drawing at first, but after many tries, I'm now more comfortable with it. With that, I want to welcome Hudson and Hatsuo.
Hello everybody, I'm Hudson.
And I'm Tatsuo, and we're going to be talking about our body art project, which is a board game called Antibodies versus Viruses.
Personally, my main inspiration for this project is when I made a board game based on the train system for many years ago for a history class one time. Even though this is a science project, the idea of making a board game based on something relating to the subject is what got me the idea to make a board game in the first place. The board game being about the human immune system, however, was something I decided on later in the conceptualizing process.
As for me, I didn't know what to do for body art, but I knew I wanted to do a group project. Our band had a meeting on what they were thinking of doing for the expression phase, and we said whether we wanted to work individually or in a group. When Hudson mentioned the idea of making a board game, he said that he was intending to do the project individually, but Siobhan said it would be better to work in a group. I was interested in the idea and I wanted to do a group project, so I decided to support Hudson's idea.
For our body art project, we wanted to make a playable board game based on the human immune system. I wanted to improve my designing skills.
And I wanted to improve my skills in using the laser cutter. Also, we wanted to research some information about the immune system. For our first iteration, we mainly just made a very abstract model of what the final iteration of the board would look like, and a lot of the other work on this iteration is mainly put into research, and we made a draft of the rules of the game. A small amount of it you see right there.
For our second iteration, we made game pieces based on what the actual antibodies and viruses look like, and I added some personification to the game pieces. We made them out of cardboard using the laser cutter. Then we got feedback for the rules of the game, but we still need to playtest it though.
For our final iteration, we finalized the rules, finished making the board versions of the pieces, and playtested the game.
We were managing our time by splitting up doing multiple different tasks, and depending on what we needed to do. We received help from one another since it's a group project, as well as Gaber, who gave us access to a medical professional to interview. The expert thought we were on the right track and gave us some advice to make sure we were not spreading false information. Now, through our research, we learned that there are 5 different types of antibodies, that being IgM, IgA, IgG, IgE, and IgD.
And we were most surprised to learn that most viruses look very alike, which will be shown in our game.
We are most proud of the design of the board, as well as some of the instructions for playing the game. One of the biggest challenges was creating the wooden pieces for the game because it was really time consuming. so it took us a long time, as to be expected, as well as a bit of trial and error to make the pieces with laser cutter.
We overcame the challenge with patience and good time management with the time given to us. But if we had more time, we would improve the project by making actual pieces for the infected cells rather than just circles of the words infected cell.
One thing we learned about ourselves was that it's useful to have a secondary person working on a project like this, because that way you can split up the work into more manageable tasks. In the future, we would like to continue to possibly work together on future projects if we feel up for it. At Expo, we like people to have fun playing our board game. Our collaborator, Shavan, helped us playtest the game and was generally supportive. A student named Miles from Chord's band also helped us playtest as well. Our bandmates, including Vix, Vihan, and Beckett, read and gave feedback on our instructions, and gamers helped us in other parts of our project.
Thanks for listening to the presentation. Any questions? Sam.
Which board games inspired the mechanics of your game?
I used this, I don't currently remember the name of the game, but it was this one game from the closet downstairs. I like the art and the piece design, so I used that as inspiration for the overall artistic direction of what the pieces would look like.
Yeah. Me? Okay, thank you. The pictures are of your game, correct? Like the body, one with the steps around. I'm curious about how you were able to get the mirroring down so precisely. And it looks like the design, the graphic design of the board game itself is incredibly precise. So I'm curious if you used any drawing tools in order to execute that.
A lot of pencil, Sharpie, and whiteout.
Okay, so all freehand, no rulers, no protractor, or anything. Wow, impressive.
No.
You over there, Hicks?
When you were talking about the antibodies, I think it was, or viruses, I can't quite remember, you were saying IG and then a letter. What does the IG stand for? I don't know that part. I'll look that up later though, because you now got me interested.
It stands for immunoglobulin.
Cool. June.
Since it's a board game, how do you determine the rules of your game?
We mainly just did some research as well. It's like a combination. We had to figure out it was like having to prioritize both the research of making it somewhat accurate to how the immune system works, as well as also just for adding different elements in for game balancing reasons. So any more questions? B.
What is the time length? Like the average time length of the game?
Between 5 and 15 minutes. No?
What is the name of your game?
Just like the title of our presentation, Antibodies versus Viruses.
Do you have any advice for other partners in working together through a project, through expression project?
Good communication. Let's make sure to communicate with one another and be clear about what needs to be done. Beck?
What's the genre of your game? How does it work? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's like a combination of just I didn't want to make it Candyland, where it's I wanted there to be strategy, so I made sure there's different spaces with different effects. There's the pieces all have different abilities, so picking which piece you play out is also a factor in the game that you're going to want to be very selective about. So it's definitely a strategy game, but it still has dice. So there's a bit of chance, a bit of strategy, I would say.
Do you have a box for the game or a safe way to store the game?
We didn't make one yet, but we haven't made one. But we might. We've discussed that. I think it's cool. It's just that we've been trying to figure out how we would do that.
How do you win the game?
You gotta
Eliminate all players from the other team.
yeah, pretty simple.
How many people can play, and what's the best advice that you got from your bandmates when they were actually playing through it?
Well,
Up to 10 people can play, but yeah.
Yeah, for playing the game, it was pretty positive, I would say. Some of the games, though, like some of them would last pretty long. So we definitely did have to add some of the gimmick parts of the game when it comes to the spaces were added, mainly because of the feedback we got and realizing some parts of the game were a little bit long. And also we had to adjust the rules to be sometimes more specific about parts we didn't really mention.
Noah, again?
At Expo, will people be able to play it?
They'll be able to play.
Yeah, we'll have it on a table.
And can it be played with 2 players?
Yeah, anywhere from 2 to 10 players, but I would recommend the best one, the amount of players would be 4 players. Anyway, so how about we pass it on to Becca and
Hello everyone. Our project is called Immortality in the Animal Kingdom by JR and Beckett.
JR. At first, we were inspired to do our project by a curiosity of how some animals have developed some form of immortality, and we wanted to answer how and why they needed to evolve biological immortality instead of other advantages and what it looks like to have biological immortality.
For our project, we wanted to make dioramas of theoretical immortal animals such as flatworms and lobsters. We wanted to improve our modeling skills and research about biological immortality.
For our first iteration, we gathered basic info for our essays that would also let us make more accurate clay models. For our second iteration, we started making some first attempt at clay models, and we also started working on our essays. And for our final iteration, we made intricate clay models of a lobster and a set of flatworms, showing a flatworm getting cut in half into multiple pieces and regenerating. And we managed our time by using a calendar and making lists, along with helping keep each other on track. And we received help from Shervan with painting, along with finding what clay to use, how we should make the models, and what they should look like.
For my research, I learned that lobsters have teeth inside their stomach and that they pee out of their mouth to communicate. And the most surprising fact is that they have teeth inside their stomach. It's just used like regular teeth for chewing and crunching food.
And for my research, I studied how flatworms are able to regenerate any missing body part and how they use that regeneration to reproduce. Some of the most surprising things I learned is that when a flatworm reproduces by splitting into multiple pieces, they are technically considered dead and each piece regenerates into a new flatworm, instead of one being considered the old flatworm and there being new flatworms along with it.
Looking back, one of the biggest challenges was staying on focus and on task, but we overcome that challenge by asking for help and being more engaged. And if we had more time on we could improve our project by having more comprehensive essays that can explain better things.
Some big takeaways we had were working with clay is more challenging than it looks, and that our focus stays strong over the first few weeks, but starts dropping off in the second half of project time. In the future, we would like to continue working together on projects and helping each other improve further. At Expo, we'd like people to read our essays and preferably not touch the models due to how fragile they are.
We'd like to thank Shervan for helping us with the clay and helping us with making our models. We'd like to thank Rob for helping us paint the clay models and make them look good. And last, we'd like to thank Rich for helping us improve our essays.
Any questions? Sam?
It looks like your clay models had all sorts of little parts that you were connecting together. You talked about the fragility. Were there any sculptural techniques that you guys tried to make them more rigid or to connect all the little pieces?
one technique I tried for my flatworms was making them really thick originally, probably twice the needed thickness, and then shaving them down a lot with a knife after they were maybe 90% dry, so they were less likely to crack if they dried unevenly. Rich.
You spoke about how flatworm can regenerate from a smaller piece, like a whole flatworm can regenerate from that. Are there cells or tissues that need to be present in that piece for the rest of the body to be able to regenerate?
I think they need at least 1 to 2 types of a special stem cell in each piece, but they barely need any because the stem cell will reproduce to make more of itself and then start splitting after it hits a certain quantity.
Got it. Thank you.
Kaya.
For the flatworms, if they get cut up and then regenerate, do they share the memory of the one that got cut up?
I'm not quite sure they had memory in the first place. They don't have a brain or any organs. They're completely solid. They're just worm. I think they just like sit there and just filter feed. I don't think they do anything else. Thanks.
I have a lobster question. With the teeth in their stomach, do they have teeth in their mouth or do they only chew like in their stomach?
They only chew in their stomach. Nathan.
What is the average lifespan of a lobster?
It's 150.
June?
Your topic is about mortality in the animal kingdom. Can you elaborate on why you choose lobster and flatworms?
I originally was planning to do this project myself, but I said I wanted to do a group project, and I thought that it was a cool topic. And flatworms were technically immortal because they could just keep regenerating. And lobsters technically don't die of old age, they suffocate because they lack the energy to shed. Truman?
Did you do any research about the immortal jellyfish?
No.
Jesus.
What tastes better, a lobster or
The lobster.
There's also the fact that flatworms are too small to physically eat. They would maybe be a small bite. Last question, Beck.
I have a lobster question. I'm pretty sure when you practiced the slideshow, you had another fact about lobsters that was like really gross. Can you share that?
Oh yeah, how they pee out of their mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah, they pee out of their mouths to communicate with other lobsters.
Thank you. Next up, Remy.
Hello everyone, my name is Remy. My project is called Track Science. So I wanted to weld for my project, but I also wanted to incorporate some art because I haven't done too much art at my time at Brightworks. So I decided to combine that into, before I tell you, I'm going to tell you how welding works, so you have an understanding when I'm talking about these things. So welding works by taking 2 pieces of metal and combining them into one solid piece.
So yeah. So this is gonna be a little bit bright. I'm gonna play a video. So if that's bad, look away or close your eyes. Last warning. So this is the process. Take 2 pieces of metal, put them together, and then let me play this video real quick. Sorry, it's kind of. Okay, here we go. So it's a little bit bright, so yeah, welding basically works by sending an electrical current through the metal that heats the metal up so hot that it starts melting, and just like a glue gun, it sends wire through the gun to fill that gap between the 2 pieces of metal, like you can see over there. And it's very hot after you do it, like you probably would guess. So yeah, this is like the wire that I was talking about. It's like a hot glue gun, except not glue. And this is the gun you shoot it out of. to weld. So first I wanted to know how I wanted to do this and how I was going to get all the scrap to do this. So I decided to use the Presidio dump, which is very close to our school, which has a lot of scrap metal that is begging to be made into something cool. So I decided to get the trash, weld it, and then make it into an art of a person, hopefully it's a person. But first I needed to know how to weld, and this guy right here, Liam, helped me a lot. He's great. I couldn't do it without him. Yeah. So after he taught me, I was like good enough at welding that I could start. So me and Liam took a few trips to go to the Presidio dump to get some scrap metal to use for the final project. So after me and Liam got the trash, I did a few test welds before I really started. So that's a snail and a little statue thing just to practice my structural, see how strong my welds are really. So I decided to use these and a few other pieces, but these are the main ones. So a piece of rebar, square metal, a heavy-duty box from a power tool, and a blade from a lawnmower, as well as a basketball hoop for the arms, and those are the pieces of metal for the legs. So it looks really cool. I like it. That's not the full thing. It looks much different, but I don't want to show you the whole thing because it's going to be a surprise at Expo. So come to Expo, or you won't see it. Thank you so much, Liam. I couldn't have done this without you. I couldn't really get a higher resolution photo because he is away right now. So yeah, thank you so much. I could not have done this without you. Yeah, it was great. Questions? Sam?
I love that you were upcycling trash. Really cool. How did you come up with the design based on materials that you didn't know what you were gonna find?
I didn't. I just did it by ear.
So you just
I just found the pieces and thought it would look cool, and then I did it. Yeah. Interesting.
What's the kind of welding that you're doing? What's it called?
MIG. Metal inert gas is also another way it's called. Yes. Rich. Or Simon.
In one of the photos of William, his right foot was awkwardly cut off.
Yeah, the background
Why
remover.
did that happen?
The background remover did not work. Rich.
Yeah, I have a question. You said it's like a hot glue gun. The glue part that's some kind of metal.
Yeah, so it's basically wire, but the inside is a thing called flux, which is a white powder kind of thing that really solidifies the metal and brings the current from the metal to the gun.
And what kind of metal is it primarily made of?
It's primarily made of steel, but it depends what type of welding you're using because different types of welding use different types of metal to weld, and yeah, cool. Beck.
Is it basically just like soldering but like bigger and hotter?
Yeah, but soldering, you use a power source from the actual soldering to melt the wire, but you use an electrical current, so you send electrical current through the metal instead of just heating up the metal and doing it. Brooke.
In creating a sculpture, has it made you interested in other sculpture?
Just welding. Bix.
You got a face?
He does indeed got a face.
You got a name?
What?
You got a name?
No, but maybe you guys can figure that out. Becca?
Can we name him Jeremy?
Sure, I don't know. I don't know your name, sorry.
No, Janet. When you're putting the different pieces together, because I imagine they're different weights and they're different sizes, what did you learn about the different techniques of welding to be able to support larger pieces or to finesse smaller pieces?
Well, one of the things I learned is welder, like not like a hot glue gun. Hot glue guns you can really move around, but welding is meant to weld in a line and not kind of move it around to fill a space. So if you don't weld in a line or like a zigzag, it won't really work. it just will like end up in like a pool, and it won't be that strong of like liquid metal. Yeah. But Will, or not Will, Noah.
How long did it take you to weld the first part of your?
Well, I mean, like the stand, which is like that piece of I-beam, took me not that long. I mean, I first tried to use a stand from a umbrella, but it didn't work. It just wasn't strong enough. So eventually I just welded with a piece of rebar. Okay. Yay, we're done.
Just want to thank you, make this really short. Thank you so much, audience, for being so attentive and engaged and asking really amazing questions. And thank you, Onyx Band, you guys rock.